tried to put up a different background so y'all didn't see my messy office, but didn't work.
Good evening and welcome to the City of Helena Administrative Meeting. This meeting is called to order. Welcome and thank you for participating in the City of Helena City Commission meeting. We are pleased to be able to provide the alternative meeting format in the city's effort to broaden public participation. Please be patient as we may experience technical difficulties during the meeting. We welcome public commentary. Please read the following tips and guidelines for the app usage and your participation. Madam Clerk, would you take the roll, please?
City Attorney Jonan.
Here.
City Manager Harlow Schulk. Oh, just a moment, Mr. Mayor. She may be stuck in the attendees. There she is.
Here, present.
Thank you. Commissioner Dean.
Here.
Commissioner Logan.
Here.
Commissioner O'Loughlin. Here. Mayor Collins.
Here.
And for the record, Mr. Mayor, I believe that Commissioner Halliday may be late or excused this evening, correct?
That is correct. Committee discussion, Helena Public Arts, Zoning Commission, Heritage Preservation, Tourism Board application review. Madam Clerk?
Mr. Mayor, Commissioners, you should have received those applications previous to now. I apologize about the public arts application not getting to you for the previous administrative meeting, but you should have received all of those in your email. I'm just asking that we move forward with formal appointment at Monday's meeting. If you have any questions or concerns, you may ask them now at this time.
Thank you. Do we have any comments or discussion for those vacancies and those applicants?
Mayor, is there any way you could just kind of run through who you're recommending? We got several applications, so I just want to make sure I've got the right.
Madam Clerk, do you have them handy?
If you give me just a moment, I will pull up.
You have just a moment.
Yep, so I have the applications that we were considering for tonight, which were Ms. Jeannie Warden for the Helena Public Arts Committee. Ms. Warden was our only applicant at this time. That at the time of the admin meeting being posted, I guess I should say. We have received other applications since. That board is badly in need of members for a quorum.
Yeah.
The next one is the only application we received for the Zoning Commission, which was Nicole Anderson. Again, another board that is badly in need of members. Katie Donath was the mayor's recommendation for the Heritage Preservation and Tourism Board. I had not received a response from the reference email that I had on Ms. Donath, but that was choice one of three that Mr. Mayor had approved. So.
Right.
Thank you, Mayor. And just maybe one question. I don't know if this is for Danae or for Director Haugen, but with this appointment to the Zoning Commission, can you tell me how many vacancies do we have? How many people do we have on, and how many vacancies do we have?
Mr.
Director
Mayor, I'll
Haugen?
defer to Danae. Mr. Mayor, I'll defer to Danae.
Okay, Madam Clerk.
If you give me just a moment, Commissioner O'Loughlin, I will tell you, I'm going to pull up my roster for them. I believe that at this time, Mayor Commissioner O'Loughlin, that appointment will give us the quorum that we need. Does that sound accurate, Ms. Haugen?
If you're saying we still have 2 vacancies, that was my understanding, that once this person gets appointed, but.
Correct.
So we'll have 3 on the zoning commission. We need 2 members, Commissioner O'Loughlin.
So we have 3 with this appointment?
That was my understanding, but that's still going to be actually a problem for us next month if we only have 3. If we're counting commission member or zoning commission member Wilson, because he's representing the applicant in the case, so he will have to be recused from voting. So.
Yeah, Commissioner O'Loughlin, Mayor, Commission, that is my understanding as well, which is why we've been reaching out outside of our normal channels to try and find further interest in particularly the quasi-judicial boards like zoning, because we knew that we could potentially running into this quorum issue, given that Mr. Wilson was going to have to recuse.
Any other comments from the commission? Madam Clerk, would you put them forward for the next meeting?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, commissioners.
Okay, recommendations from Helena Citizens Council, Ms. Perry. Madam Clerk, do we have Ms. Perry on the line? Oh, there she is.
Hello, Mr. Mayor and Commissioners. This is Nancy Perry from HCC District 2. The Helena Citizens Council last met on June 23rd, and our next meeting will be next week on June 28th. And in the meantime, I have nothing to report. So thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Perry. City Manager's report.
Good evening, Commission. Good evening, Mayor.
Good evening.
First up, I would like to ask for the consensus among the Commission. And then I know that Commissioner Halliday is not present, and that you all had made a commitment when discussing the school resource officer item that the Commission would all be present. I also had requested in an email that we move the item to August 4th. Chief Hagan just to honor a request of Chief Hagan, who is on leave. So if you're in consensus with that, I do just believe also, because Commissioner Halliday is not here, that would be an agreement you all might have. But I just want to confirm that you're ready to move it to August 4th, the next Commission admin meeting.
Thanks, Madam Manager. I don't have a problem with that. Any other commissions?
I'm okay
Mr.
with
Mayor, I'm
that.
fine.
Thank you.
There you have it.
There we go. Okay, and I won't delay any further the presentation that we have tonight, and then I do have just a couple of follow-up items I want to make sure and share with you all. But I first want to introduce Mr. Harry and Mr. Stoops, who are present for a conversation and presentation with you, similar to what was done by TDS on a potential franchise agreement, and also offer up the opportunity for Deputy Attorney, City Attorney Eric Coate, if you'd like to offer up any additional introduction before I turn it over to the team at Clarity to share what they would like to with you all.
Okay. Mr. Stoop, I think you have the floor, huh?
Mayor Collins, yes, I appreciate your time, Commission, Helena Commission. We had sent Mr. Coate a deck. Do you all have that, or would you like for me to pull it up online? Eric, was that dispersed? Okay. Thanks for the time this evening. Again, my name is Desi Stoops. I'm the Vice President at Clarity Telecom for market development. We currently own and operate cable franchise, high-speed internet franchise in South Dakota and in Minnesota. We are actively pursuing expansion within, call it the Great Plains, from the Dakotas down to, North Texas, as well as over into Wyoming and Montana. One of the things that we would like for this council to consider would be to reviewing the franchise agreement that we had submitted to Mr. Coate, be able to answer any questions that we have. We have provided an initial high-level design in that document that we submitted earlier yesterday, I believe, that hopefully you guys have, that outlines our construction plans that would include both aerial and buried underground. Essentially, from a high level, Clarity Telecom is a cable overbuilder, and we would love to be able to provide the citizens of Helena true fiber to the home solution, so they could have an alternative to their existing incumbent cable and internet service provider. With that, I'll turn it over to our COO, Chief Operating Officer, Mr. Mike Harry, for additional commentary, and then we'll be available for any questions and comments that you guys may have. Mike?
Thank you, Desi. Thank you, Mr. Mayor and commission members. I'll be brief. I don't want to take up too much time, but if you look through the presentation, myself and Rich Fish partnered up with GI Partners, which is a large private equity fund, have about $28 billion under management. They raised a communications infrastructure fund of about $1.8 billion. Almost a year ago, they closed the fund, but we partnered up with them to do diligence on a company that operates in South Dakota called Vast Broadband. And we saw Vast as a fantastic opportunity, cable operator, independent cable operator of the year. Saw it as a fantastic opportunity to take and build on what Vast was currently doing and the performance that they have in the back office, the customer care, the systems, and really leverage that and make significant investments in areas around the state of, adjacent to the state of South Dakota and Minnesota, and branching out and really focusing in on cities that are potentially underserved from a fiber to the home, fiber broadband infrastructure. We firmly believe that a city like Helena deserves the same infrastructure and the same type of service that Denver or San Francisco or a large NFL metropolitan market would have, and we firmly believe in that. And so what we're looking to do is come to Helena and deploy, as Desi was saying, a fiber completely, fiber to the home, fiber to the business infrastructure. Our broadband speeds, when we talk about speeds and the services we would offer from an internet perspective, our minimum entry point, we're still working on finalizing packages and pricing, but our minimum entry point's 500 megabits, and that would compare to what others may be starting out at 100 meg. Our pricing will be, I think, very attractive, very appealing to the market and to people, and we would range somewhere between 500 and up to 5 to potentially 10 gig service. So it's very compelling. It's exciting. It's an exciting time in the industry. There's a lot of this activity going on, and we really, what we look forward to and what we believe in is developing a true partnership with the communities. We've met with some where the current providers have closed their retail stores, closed some of their locations, haven't invested, don't have technicians in markets. That's not what we're about. We're about being in the community, being part of the community, getting involved in the community and things that are important to the citizens of Helena, and we're excited about the opportunity. I think if you flip forward to page 7, it just gives you a very high level view of what the network would potentially look like. It's what we call is a high level design. It's something that's been done by an engineering organization that we use. So it depicts at a rough estimate where we think we would be doing overhead or aerial construction on the utility poles, or attachments on the utility poles versus potentially underground. This is a starting point for us. There's probably not, the majority or all of the market build out. We get in and we continue to be in and continue to expand. And, this is where we start and we grow and we continue to grow as the city grows and the city adds, people and subdivisions and areas that make sense. We will continue to expand into those as well. So it's roughly 160 miles of construction, 160 miles of fiber that we'd be putting in, and again, 14,000 homes passed or passings. We would offer both residential and commercial services. It's not just an internet. It's one of the reasons we're getting a cable franchise is we also offer a video service. And so our video package is comparable with what other cable providers would have. And we also embrace, and support the over-the-top solution. If a customer wants to have YouTube TV or Hulu or whatever it may be, we love that. We think that's great, and we want to provide them the bandwidth that they need to support that. So that in a nutshell, and I said I didn't want to take up too much time. I probably talked a little bit longer than I needed to, but want to open it up if there's any questions and be happy to address and answer anything we can.
Thank you, Mr. Harry. Comments or questions from the commission? Mr. Coates, you have anything to say?
I do not, Mr. Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments or discussion from the commission?
Mayor, I guess I have one question.
Please go ahead.
So does the city of Helena have an active, or has it issued an RFQ for a franchise agreement, or how are these coming to us right now? And maybe that's a question for the city manager or city attorney.
Thank you, Commissioner. No, we have not entered an RFQ or shared an RFQ. ARPA, I'll just put out there, ARPA is nationwide. Companies are looking for opportunities to expand. ARPA provides an opportunity for conversations that hadn't been potentially sought after before. And then there's a lot of organizations that are expanding in this area. So I think it's timing, expansion, and opportunity of funding with ARPA. So those three things. So we are not actively pursuing any of them. They are pursuing us.
Yeah, I can answer it from how we identify. We ran and we do market analysis, and we do studies on what technology and what competition and what providers are currently doing in markets, we look for markets of a certain size and competitive profile. We are 100% funded, self-funded. We are not getting any federal, state, not looking for any local funding. This is all on us to go do. And Helena, fits the profile of markets that we're excited about and that we think is a great place to take the technology and to expand and then expand from there. So that's how we came about it. And I think it's an exciting time in the industry. There's a lot of activity going on. Obviously you guys are seeing some of that. And so it's, that's how we approach it. And that's how we came to see Helena.
And if I can add some comments to what Mr. Harry was saying, an example of some of these markets that we're currently engaged with existing franchises or nearing franchise completion: Grand Forks, North Dakota; Sheridan, Wyoming; Casper, Wyoming; Cheyenne, Wyoming. I'm actually located in Oklahoma, Stillwater, Oklahoma, Oklahoma State. Enid, Oklahoma; Perry, Oklahoma; Lawton, Oklahoma; Salina, Kansas; Hutchinson, Manhattan, Kansas. So the range is in that, like Mr. Harry was saying, the non-NFL cities that have just simply been overlooked. Now, rest assured, the existing cable provider could come in and offer broadband, or pardon me, fiber to the home, but they would have to invest just as much as would potentially be investing in the city of Helena and the infrastructure. But if you think about it, would the existing provider spend that money in Helena, or would they spend it in Denver or Phoenix or Chicago, right? I mean, we see these markets as being in the industry for nearly 30 years. We've spent the majority of that time building and helping the big networks, and we are all grew up in cities just like Helena. Nebraska is where Mike Harry's from, and Rich Fish is from. Our CEO is from Nebraska. I'm from Oklahoma, and we're like, this is the perfect time. It's the perfect storm, like Mike was saying, to really help the citizens that haven't been helped. And so we're looking forward for your consideration of approval, and excited to be working with you should you grant approval.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah.
Any other comments, Commissioner?
Oh, Mayor, maybe just a quick follow-up question then for either the city manager or the city attorney. Would entering into a franchise agreement go through an RFQ process?
Good question. No, it does not. I'll let Thomas answer it.
So Mayor Collins, Commissioner Laughlin. So this is a cable franchise. You recall that TDS has also requested a cable franchise agreement. So we're looking at 3 cable providers. As you're probably aware, the cable is governed by federal law, and we cannot unreasonably withhold the granting of the franchise. There's not a lot of wiggle room for negotiation, because whatever agreement we reach with Clarity and TDS, we also have to give to the incumbent Charter Spectrum. So it's a little bit different than just internet alone, or a service provided by the city, where we would look at an RFP or a bid process. These are 2 cable companies, triple play providers, that are coming in looking to use city rights of way and seek that permission via a franchise agreement, exactly like what we did with Spectrum Charter. And the approval of that franchise agreement would be via an ordinance adoption process.
Thank you.
Do we have any other comments from the commission? Do we have any public comments? Madam Clerk.
Mr. Mayor, Commissioners, I have no hands raised and I see no written public comment at this time.
Okay, thank you, gentlemen, for your presentation. We will look into it.
We appreciate your time.
Thank you.
Appreciate your time.
Thank you. Madam Manager, You still have the floor.
Thank you. Yep, just some quick updates on a couple of items. I really wanted to congratulate the City of Helena, the community of Helena, for an excellent weekend this last weekend. Our police department, our parks department, our transportation departments. The police department spent a great deal of time in double duty supporting some really great community events. And want to follow up, we'll send a follow up on the lack of really problems within the community. And that I think is a result of some proactive work and really excellent events. So congratulations to those who in the community had events, and thank you, I think, is a real testament to the level of effort the team puts in trying to, especially after COVID, this is really the big first weekend of large events in the community that we've seen. The Symphony of the Stars was terrific, and I was really impressed. That was my first event. So just wanted to point out how well it went. If you have any questions on that front, let me know. Over the weekend, I am going to be asking Director Kanapke to cover me as a stand-in. I'm going to take some time off tomorrow and through the weekend. So if there are any concerns or questions y'all have for the city manager, please reach out to David. He's going to step in for me. And as you know, Chief Hagan is on leave. So I've given a flag to David. I also have him here tonight to answer a couple of questions. And I think I'll end the conversation here with him next. So David, if you want to go ahead and if you want to come on to camera. But before I move on to David, I want to share to you that an update on the housing front. There's been several conversations this week, one with Rotary last week, this week today with Chamber. There's a lot of concern and effort within the community around housing. And there's been a lot of conversation. Obviously, the homeless conversation came up along Cruz Avenue over the weekend. They were moved along, and you'll see them in the community. We don't have a resource, and the city has not made an investment in homelessness as an organization. We don't have staff on that are specializing in homeless work. That's been traditionally the focus of the county. On the housing side, we of course have made a large effort as it relates to the Housing Trust Fund. And on the Housing Trust Fund side, the excellent work you all have done in moving money from care savings, general fund savings, into the fund itself. Kara, Kara Snyder, who is our housing coordinator, has been working on and will be bringing forward the drafted rule. She's working with Andrew Chinania with North Fork Development, and we'll have some really great rules for your consideration. At the same time, it'll be at an admin meeting that she'll also recommend a committee for all of you to help inform any future funding in that. So those activities are coming in the future meetings, but I want you to know that those conversations are happening in the community, and I don't want you caught off guard. That those are happening, and there's a noted effort today by the developers to share to us the things that they would like to see happen in the city, and so I look forward to hearing from them what they would like to see changed. As you know, one of the positions that was adopted was a development position specific to help navigate our developers and our departments through the development, navigate through the processes as well. The team has been really focusing a great deal on how we can make it clearer, faster, even remove barriers for development in ways that we can. But it really does come to also how high it is to buy a home, the price of a home here, as well as salaries, as well as daycare, as well as all those things that really go along with being able to work. Do you have a car? Can you get there? Your kids? So those are all efforts that I'm really excited to see more of a focus within not just the organization here in the city, but also in the community, that there's this larger interest in working together, as opposed to waiting for the government to come in and decide how we could fix it, which is great. I think that's really where this larger issue of homelessness, which we've not really engaged, will matter and play out for us. So I also know that Director Hogan and Chief Hagan and I are working on a conversation with our nonprofit providers as well as community members who are engaged in the homeless support services. Many of those services are in Helena that are provided by support organizations. Those who choose to live on the streets or choose to camp are going to be living in places that are close to where they receive their services, where they can get their medicines, where they can get a shower, where they can get food. So those are things within the city. They're not necessarily in the hills and they're not necessarily in the valley. So the focus on Helena in the most recent months, I believe, has partly to do also with an increase in numbers, because people have changed the way they view even how their lives are, and COVID has been part of that as well. So we're seeing a lot more people even in town than we were surprised to see. So while this last weekend was exciting on a front of having so many people come to town and the increase in revenue, I mean, we had restaurants, as I understand it, who had run out of enough product to sell because there was just so many people in town, which is exciting. It also brings those who want to live here who will be camping outside. So those are conversations and things that Helena as a city organization hasn't invested in, and we can't fix it alone. So ARPA, those ARPA dollars, we're going to be coming to you all in the coming weeks to talk about the strategy. Governor Gianforte today announced they had over $919 million worth of water and wastewater applications for their ARPA dollars. Part of that was our $35 million. We hope to be competitive within those. Those are several projects in those. Those dollars also play into the allocations that we receive and the demands of things that we do not currently offer by way of services. Last several days I've been in conversations with the county about the services they provide on mental health, behavioral health, and the homeless, trying to understand how we've been engaged in that conversation and where we could engage with the county as a partner. And the county, Commissioner Dean, when I first started, had asked if she couldn't, and I believe I shared it out to all of you. I'll come back around to this point when we talk about ARPA, around behavioral health. The question was asked, what are the resources being invested by the county in behavioral health? And they provided a list of activities, but that work has really just started since 2012. They have one position, and that one position is funded by a grant. That position also has been working on a gap analysis of behavioral health services. That is a draft report. I'm not sure. They said they're hoping by end of August, to have it finalized. But within that, we'll have a better understanding of what the county believes to be the gap in services. The problem for us is that we've not been at the table. And we've asked to be at the table. The county has offered for us to engage there in a committee that they have specifically engaged providers in, as well as several of their own operations. The position itself reports underneath Drenda within the health department, but that one position is covering all of Lewis and Clark County. And it does not necessarily, our participation on a committee that we've been asked to be part of, actually result in some movement on something that is an immediate need. The immediate need is homeless needs that are resulting in more demand locally here, and how can we support them? So the conversation that Sharon and Steve will help coordinate in a bigger sense this with providers is important, because they all worked very well together during COVID. Prior to that, in my own conversations with providers, they didn't necessarily do that before because they're all competing for the same dollars. So I would like to be able to have a conversation where there's some commitments to a longer term partnership among all of us to address what is now Helena's problem, not just the counties alone, but that we have an issue that we need to work on and do it before winter shows, before winter comes. There are people who are camping in the hills that are homeless. They're choosing again to camp in the hills, and they will come to town looking for resources during the winter. And I know that's common, but there are more because, again, people have chosen a different direction with their lives and they're choosing different ways of living. And there may also be gaps in other service needs, and that being behavioral health and the homeless. So those conversations we started with the county. The answer they want from us is, what does that mean? What is it that you want specifically? And I don't have an answer. We've not invested as a community there. And usually when we invest in things, we spend the money up front to analyze, strategize, and do a feasibility study, some sort of study to find it. Thankfully, behavioral health has got a gap analysis coming, so the county might be able to help us there. I'm not sure. I'm going to have a look through what the draft is, but I don't have that for homeless. I'm not sure though if and I'll keep going after it. I know next month we have a conversation coming with the county, joint county city meeting with Good Samaritan. This is a long past conversation that Teresa Ortega had brought in the gaps that they've identified and some solutions there. But those are from one organization, and really it's a whole picture of service that surrounds these two issues and the interplay here. And there are two places we've not engaged, and it's traditionally not something cities engage in. So how can we better, and the county doesn't have the resources, how can we better position ourselves? So ARPA is an opportunity. We also have further conversations coming around tax on marijuana. Perhaps in January, there might be an item on the, I know that the county's talking about it, on ballot potentially for taxation of the sale of marijuana in the city. Those are opportunities for us because the city would be able to gain access to those dollars. Those are potential long-term dollars. So one-time dollars with ARPA, long-term dollars on the potential in the future under these ballot initiatives for marijuana, which is exciting as well. And because that might be our entry point. We otherwise don't have funding set aside for that activity. So just trying to close some loops on some conversations I know that are really important for all of you. I don't have a written recommendation at this point. I just want you to know that I'm moving along in these conversations. They're not easy. They're complex conversations, and they take a good bit of thought, but I don't want you to think that we're letting things go either. So we're working with developers, working with the chamber, working with our nonprofits. So David, if you have any questions.
Before you go to David,
yes.
Comments or questions from the commission?
Yeah, Mayor, I guess I have a couple questions, if that's okay.
Please.
So I'm going to try to take these in the order that you just went through those. So first, thank you to the city for, all of its work over the weekend with the events. And in addition to Symphony and the Stars, I guess I would also recognize all the work with Pride as well. I am curious what the city's reaction is to the work over the weekend with the open container, waiving the open container. Any reactions to that? Thoughts on how that went?
What was my observation, and certainly I'll open it up to any of the other directors who were on to reflect on that experience, but there was no problems. There were no problems. People were very happy to be together, and there weren't concerns. Now, we were also very deliberate in trying to prepare the environment in a method that would allow for as much ease and just focus on enjoying each other's company in these festivities. as well. So those would be the kinds of focus we would have moving forward if there was another conversation around open container in that downtown area.
Okay, great. Thank you. I mean, I know there was some discussion by the commission about trying to create sort of a more systematic process so that, you know, we're not kind of under the gun. So maybe something for a future meeting, once you all have had a chance to kind of think about what's a good process for future events. The second question I had was related to the housing topic that you mentioned. And I know there's been some conversation around sort of being prepared for upcoming, you know, additional ARPA funding above and beyond the city's allocation. And so this maybe is a question for Director Haugen. Do we have a sense of what the timeline is for the home funds, the homelessness funds that were provided in ARPA and that Department of Commerce is administering?
Yes,
Mr.
we do.
Excuse me, Mr. Mayor, Commissioner O'Loughlin, we still have not gotten any firm dates from Commerce. What we're hearing from them is that they're closer to getting ready. And I apologize if that sounds vague, but that's kind of the responses we're getting from them.
Okay, that's really helpful.
I'm not hearing that it would be anything different beyond what they already provide by way of the method and the process. Sharon, is there any other indication that there's a change in the method or process outside what is already made available through the CDBG and home? Because these are just additional dollars within that group. Is that correct?
Mr. Mayor, commissioners, what they have kind of indicated in the past is that they might loosen up some of their administrative rules. But we're not quite sure what that means or looks like.
Thank
and
you.
It might be quicker timelines for response back, or I don't have any, that's all the indication that I got. I'm not sure if what they're proposing is something that HUD's going to allow them to do. So when we get that information, I will pass it on to the manager and to the commission as soon as we get it. We've been anxiously waiting for it too.
Thanks.
Okay,
Commissioner?
great, thank you. And then maybe just a quick comment, related to kind of the housing issue more broadly. The chief economist for the Department of Labor and Industry did a presentation today in front of one of the legislative ARPA commissions and noted just the increase in the median home price, home value here in Helena, which now is above the Montana average and well above the US average. So that I think was an interesting presentation and included some reference to both sort of what we're seeing in the workforce with about 1,000 jobs added, and then what we're seeing with housing prices. The other thing I would note, and perhaps something to follow up with, you know, with those that are on that commission or others, the Montana Nonprofit Association also provided public comment, encouraging them to think about sort of, as you said, city manager, the concept of kind of bringing both nonprofits and city and private developers together to kind of plan out what's really needed and meeting those gaps. There was an encouragement to kind of consider that as a potential use of ARPA funds, the state's funds. So perhaps something to think about as we head into this. So thank you for the update. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Commissioner. Any other comments from the commission?
Mr. Mayor, just a brief question for the city manager, and you'd alluded to this a little bit in your introduction to this housing discussion, particularly surrounding the homelessness discussion. And I'm wondering if in those conversations with the county, if there has been, and some of the nonprofits, if there's been discussion yet about how we maybe remove some of the silos that prevent, you know, some partners from really working together or working with local government. in a manner that's really productive. I know that during COVID, there were a lot of folks, we were struggling to deal with some of this. And so I'm just wondering if you've had some of those discussions about how we remove some of those silos and work together more collaboratively with these partners, some of which are, particularly important, given that we just don't have the number that other communities do.
Yeah. Yes, I have. So that point of the competition for the same dollar, that is the makes it very difficult for those who are sharing services, but they're not exactly the same services. So they're not like for one nonprofit who might provide services for women doesn't necessarily provide services for men and so the whole family unit. So there could be disqualifications just within their own entry. What's really encouraging is that they have been working on one entry point system, and that is a really important method across the nonprofits to help coordinate support as opposed to making someone shop the service, so giving them a list. So that really has been a very strong method that is to the benefit of those who need support. The other interesting, I learned in these conversations that we are actually the location for almost 7 different counties for people who have need. So it's not just Lewis and Clark County, it's our neighboring counties. So it's Jefferson County, it's Broadwater County. Those who are in need are coming here because we have broad services, food share, other general service types of services for those who need support. That also hasn't been discussed. So it's not just a Helena issue. It's not just a Lewis and Clark County alone issue. So the broader need of those who are in poverty and those who are transitioning is still a bigger conversation. The nonprofit association itself is an interesting one. Commissioner O'Loughlin and I have talked, and we had our conversation this week, and as well about the nonprofits, in particular the survey they had given response to around general fund savings and how we could spend it and how they could spend it, and the use of the Helena Community Foundation as the location for the distribution of those dollars. The Community Foundation, as opposed to the City of Helena being the distribution point for those dollars, reduces the competition in front of the city for those dollars, because Helena Community Foundation isn't going to compete for those dollars in that pool. They don't have a particular group that they're working with. So that gives the city the first opportunity to have a Helena-based organization that can broadly support. The second is this question about how do you, and I mentioned this to Commissioner O'Loughlin, the broader conversation around nonprofits is a difficult one that I'm not sure that I've hit the right recommendation for you all yet. I still need to noodle on it. At first, the recommendation that I have been shopping with some of you to get your feelings on what do you think of the nonprofits overall, and what do you think of having an advisory board where the nonprofits that are the largest within the community are coming to you and providing you advice on how best to move significant issues in the City of Helena in the most effective way, and by supporting you and you being able to support them. Because we don't have those resources in our staffing, it's very hard for us to get our hands around it. At the same time, we also don't have economic development. We also don't have some of these other strong services that we're behind in. So I want to work with the developers to improve our development processes, but I have my plate. These end up on my plate, so I become thinner and thinner. So I want to be able to try and find the best way to use the resources we have. So is that an advisory board to you all? Is it another person? Is it an investment in the county? Is it an investment with the housing? Who is the best place for these broader, larger picture conversations that I know you all want to have that support the community together? Moving forward, we have to work together. We're pretty behind, as I've shared with you all. I believe we're 10 years behind in this housing conversation. We're 10 years behind on our financial stability and fiscal stability. The only way to move faster forward is to do it with partnership and being able to engage them in that conversation. So I'm not ready for an answer on how best to work with the nonprofits across. 8 months in, the conversation I'm finally getting at, the nugget, which is this behavioral health and the services being offered by the county and the city, and how we could work together. Those are still conversations we need to have more constructively.
Thank you. Madam Clerk, I don't think we should be having this conversation without the other stakeholders involved, because Helena is, it looks like we're stretched thin. Well, when I say other stakeholders, I'm talking about Broadwater, I'm talking about Jefferson County. We serve those people, so we should be having those conversations with those people. They need to come to the table. They need to bring whatever resources they have and come to the table with that. It's not only Lewis and Clark County and the City of Helena. Those people need to be at the table also.
We also, I completely agree, Mayor. The second, another line of thought that has come about in the last several days is around the legislative session and a legislative agenda for the City of Helena. You all have not had a legislative agenda, and we have a year between each session. It's an opportunity to study what it is here in Helena that Helena needs to be discussing and working with the League of Cities, so that we have a thought around how we could really move these larger issues that are not just alone to Helena, but because it's the state capital, there are expectations across the state about what we can provide by way of resources. It's just a function of what we are in the state itself. Not that we don't have an obligation to our citizenry. We do. Our level of effort to support the broader region is significantly more than has really been analyzed. I feel very strongly in understanding some of the nonprofit demand that I'm starting to get a more clear view of now that we're having more direct conversations. Sometimes it's really hard to have them in Zoom even, being able to go and visit, talk about their clients, talk about the resources they've got. So I haven't noodled a recommendation for you all completely out yet. I've had a conversation with the nonprofit association, both Montana and Helena, and so they've all great ideas, and I want to be able to bring a good recommendation to you all. So anything in particular that you want to flag, just like you said, Mayor, this conversation needs to include the other counties outside of just Lewis and Clark as well. Any other thoughts you might have, so that as I bring back a recommendation on next steps to you all, I'm reflecting on any additional research elements you'd like me to look at, because I'm just starting to, I think, open up this book more thoughtfully.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Director Kanapke?
Mayor, can I just make just a quick comment on that?
Please.
So, Mayor, I think you're right. I think bringing some of the other, jurisdictions to be part of this conversation is important. I would also lift up probably the need to have these conversations with our legislative delegation as well, which I don't know that we do in a very systematic way right now. I think other cities maybe do, and so that might be something to kind of talk to the league about too. What are some best practices as we are engaging with our legislative delegation, who I think should certainly be part of these conversations as well. On maybe just kind of a quick reaction to the comment about a potential advisory board, that one of the things that I think we heard quite clearly in conversations around housing is that there's a lot of different convenings happening and committees that exist around housing and homelessness. There are definitely a lot of players, but there's also a lot of, I think, meetings that happen. And a lot of these nonprofits are also pretty stretched, right? So that would be the one caution I would say is, do we need to actually create something new, or, can we lean on maybe one or two partners to help, maybe they are already bringing the people together, and it's just the city needs to kind of figure out its role in those spaces.
Thank you, Commissioner. Director?
Good afternoon, Mayor and Commissioners. I just wanted to give you a quick update on the parking situation. Several months ago, we had said we'd keep you appraised of the situation as far as parking. And as everyone's aware, through the pandemic, residents, businesses, and cities have all been affected by the pandemic and impacted differently. Parking was impacted as well. Looking back, January 2020, our on-street parking and parking lot revenues was about $26,000. And that same time period in July or January 2021, we were down to 15,800. So, but as the city manager stated, we're seeing a lot of events this year. More events than we've seen in the past. We've seen great events with great participation by not only say runners or whatever, but people coming in to see all these events and participate. And so in the past 4 months, we've been seeing a trend back towards normal. That trend is looking. We've always had a benchmark, and we're getting close to that. Early this year, we kept hovering around the $16,000 in revenue on the on-street and parking lot revenue. Starting in March, we got up to 21,000. April was 22,500. May, we had a little bit of a dip again, but in June, with the I think school getting out and people taking trips and people just wanting to get out and be together, we were at 29,000. We had a big, and as far as July goes, we're currently about 18,000 right now. So it appears that we're getting back to normal. And if you would like a more detailed analysis of this, I'd be more than happy to prepare something and send that out to you. But just wanted to give you a brief update of where we're at. And it's great to see everybody in Helena and downtown and the streets being busy with folks. I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Director. Comments or questions from the commission?
Mr. Mayor, just a quick question.
Please.
I'm curious how much of that are some of the lot permits or the garages, and are you seeing some of those like workers potentially coming back down that use those more or less every day, or is it more on street of tourists or folks just coming to use downtown?
So the numbers I provided tonight were just strictly pay to park. So the on-street kiosks and paying in the parking lot, it does not include the parking permits or the long-term permits for the workers coming back. But that's if you're interested in seeing those numbers, we can definitely provide those numbers to you.
Yeah. An email would be great with that even.
Thank you. Any other comments or questions from the commission? Thank you, Director.
Okay. Sorry, Mayor.
Oh,
If I could just add one more item before we hop off to the next, which is the request from Exploration Works. Director Leland just brought in they received their samples from the split samples we took of the same locations the EPA had taken in 10 Mile Creek, and we'll prepare a memo to you all over the weekend. I did attend the public meeting in Remini at the fire station. Very interesting conversation. I think the relationships with the community and the citizens that have been built and I've been really working on, and I appreciate the the effort of the community to get to know me and feel comfortable calling me when there are concerns. Those efforts pay by way of us understanding what's happening outside of the community that might impact our work. So I'm thankful to the residents of Remini who had reached out to us and shared that this meeting was happening. I was otherwise not aware. Myself and Director Leland went to the meeting. It was very helpful. I'll provide a summary to you all and the comparison lab results that we also have, the EPAs. Why does it matter? In the big picture, we are in the watershed. The watershed includes our underground, our water resources underground. We're going to be going forward, investing in efforts to capture, treat, and distribute those underground resources. That's our watershed, not just the surface water. So yes, our water comes in below, but it is part of the larger watershed, and there are obligations that we need to be made aware of. And now I'll put some context around it for you, for me, just to make sure you understand why I'm concerned, not so much with cleaning up. Montana, remember my family, Butte, I get it. Some things are just tough to clean up. And Libby really was a tough level of, and a large level of effort by the EPA and the Department of DEQ, Department of Environmental Quality. Some really significant work goes on by these teams. I'm not criticizing them. I'm asking for the communication from these agencies that they should be giving us when there's an emergency. And I like I said, the community and the citizens in the community, I really appreciate them feeling comfortable and saying, hey, water treatment plant, what's going on? There's something in the creek. You might want to look out before you treat something that might harm your treatment system. That's why we notify each other when there's an emergency. Not so much. We also want to make sure we're protecting the people and in our community if they're going to be recreating outside. So I'm not pressuring for big money to clean up what I know is difficult, but I am pressuring for communication because it's not that hard. I'm at 911. So I just want you to know that that's the focus that I've had on the effort. I'm really not trying to be alarmist, as that might have been a part of the conversation after the article that was written. I'm really trying to understand why we're not being notified of things.
Thank you.
Also, so just to close that, I'll have Director Leland and the team do the analytics review on what should have happened and prepare for you kind of a recommendation for next week. Thank you.
Exploration work.
Exploration works. Mayor, you were invited to a meeting and went to it. They were interested, and afterwards you shared that it was a conversation that I really need to be in with Thomas and the city attorney's office. And when Exploration Works was put together, the city was a part owner. As part of the TIF district, we were named as part owners, and they are interested in, from having the meeting, in the city relinquishing that ownership. And different from the conversation we had with the soccer association. I know that there was one that might be confused with that. The soccer association conversation at the airport is a lease. This one is property ownership. And we don't have a specific recommendation for you because it was an ask, a proactive ask from them that we consider removal of ourselves from that ownership. And they don't have a particular hindrance at this point, but they want to go after more loans and are concerned with building out any more investments, and a perception that the city would hinder that because they don't solely own that location. So we don't have a particular letter from them that says, hey, we need you to come off of the lease. This is the deed, because this is the impact to us as a result. My recommendation at this point is to let you know this came in. We want to go ahead and send a letter to them that says, the commission will bring and review your ask when you're ready for that conversation if you feel that you are actually running into that hindrance. So the commission can have that conversation directly with Exploration Works as opposed to this kind of conversation. That is, unless you would like them to just go ahead and come onto the agenda and make the ask now. But right now, there isn't a particular loan that they've sought and not received because the city is part owner. Thomas, also, if you have anything you want to add. And Mayor.
Thank you. Any comments or questions from the commission on that? Is there anyone from the public wishes to address the commission? Madam Clerk?
Mr. Mayor, Commissioners, I have no raised hands and I've received no written comment on this item.
Thank you.
Mayor,
Any final comments from the commission?
so if it's better to do this later, that would be fine, but a bit of background on why the city has ownership, what sort of drove that decision when the urban renewal district was created. And I just was a little confused by this. So if this is not up today and maybe we can get a more detailed memo later, that would be fine. Or if Thomas wants to provide a little bit more background, that might be useful.
Okay, so Madam Manager, would you gather the details for us at a later meeting and then you can present that? Any other comments?
Mr. Mayor?
Yes.
Just really quickly on that note, I think maybe if it could be included within that memo, you know, it sounds like this doesn't need immediate action, but just maybe a better understanding of, you know, if there is a timeline that people have in mind, or, you know, what kind of, are there unintended consequences that we don't understand without that information, and any particular timelines would be helpful too.
Oh, that's why we have Thomas and Eric here. Don't worry. They'll take care of us legally.
Yeah, Mayor, Commissioners, I apologize. There's a vast portion of the memo that's missing, and I don't know how that happened. There's a bunch of background information we did provide. I think there was a disconnect between our internal Novus memo and Novus, but just briefly for the Commission's information, Exploration Works and the city entered into a partnership. The city gave about $900,000 in the former downtown TIF district to help construct and purchase the property. And so the city now owns about 39% of the property. And yeah, Exploration Works is just, at least of now, just exploring. They don't have a concrete proposal, but do want the city to consider removing the city's interest from the property. In other words, a quitclaim deed from the city.
Thank you, Mr. Jordan. Any other comments from the commission?
Mr. Mayor,
Go ahead, Commissioner.
I guess I would appreciate, you know, moving this into the future. I didn't feel like I really understood the motivation for the ask, and I guess just look forward to more information on it. Thanks.
Sure. Thank you. All right. Nothing else? Madam Manager, you have your directions.
Yes, and I'm going to summarize it for you. That was one of the asks that Commissioner O'Loughlin, I appreciate just pointing out, just to make sure that we're all on the same page as to what I'm doing after this meeting. I will be looking into a systematic process recommendation for future events in the community where open container is requested. I will also be sharing an update to you all on conversations in the community around housing, homelessness, and those larger achievable housing conversations happening along with our nonprofits. The distinction being that there's a difference between someone who may be ill, who is on the street as opposed to someone who has chosen to camp and be camping in our community. There's some distinctions in these conversations. There's more complexity to them. I will be following up on a larger legislative potential conversation that you all could be having, and talking with our league friends on best practices, getting ready for the session, not coming up, but the following year, what might be helpful. And then also in this memorandum of recommendation around really behavioral health and homelessness and housing, making sure to clarify that who the partners are at the table, and those are include those 7 counties that are really engaged, not just Lewis and Clark and Helena. And last, some more detail on follow-up, perhaps a presentation. I'll talk with Thomas about the memo on exploration works and making sure that gets back out. I'm not sure either. Thomas, thanks for pointing out that the Novus wasn't working correctly. You should have gotten that in your packet. So we'll make sure and send it out to you after this meeting so you have that as well. And we'll reach back to Exploration Works. If you're in agreement, though, and I don't know that I've gotten agreement from you all, that I should send them a letter asking that they go ahead and make a formal request of the city to come off of that deed. That would be the best way to do it, and to get the conversation started. That it begins these further discussions around timelines and so forth, and really putting that into Exploration Works' hands as opposed to us trying to interpret it for them, and have them come back to you all with that after we receive the letter. If you're in consensus with that, I would like to send them a confirmation.
I don't see a problem.
Mr. Mayor, I'd
Go
be
ahead.
comfortable with her moving forward with the letter.
Right. Any other comments? Are you all comfortable with moving forward with the letter?
Yeah, I'm okay with that. I think reading the memo will be helpful because I just feel like I don't have much of a frame of reference. And, if that's something we feel we need to start getting more information, but I also wouldn't want it to be we're inviting you to do this because we're in support of it.
No, that's not the intent. That's not how I understand it.
Okay. Yep. Just want to make sure that's clear. We're not necessarily advocating they ask for this, but if they're going to ask for this, it needs to be in some sort of more formal process, if that's what you're asking, City Manager.
And that is what I'm asking.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think we need consensus on that. If that's what the city manager thinks that we need in the process, and I would agree with Commissioner Dean.
Great.
Okay, thank you. Nothing else? This meeting is adjourned.